Good afternoon, everyone. My stomach is growling, so I won't be as long-winded as I usually am. My name is Nancy Blackwell. I'm the Executive Director of Court-Appointed Special Advocates of Baltimore City. You all may know us as CASA. We are one of over 900 CASA programs around the country. We were started here in Baltimore in 1998. For those of you that don't know CASA, CASA was started in 1987. A judge in Seattle, Washington said he was not comfortable making the decisions that he was making for kids in foster care. So he put an ad in a Seattle newspaper to ask for citizen volunteers who would review cases and make recommendations to the court based on the child's best interest. Here in Maryland, specifically in Baltimore City, there are 1,947 children in foster care. So the warm and fuzzy agreements that are made through open adoptions and adoptions, foster care is a big, ugly, hairy monster. Kids come into foster care because of abuse and neglect. Most of the calls that come to Baltimore City Child Protective Services are from Johns Hopkins Hospital and also from the school system. And that's about, I want to say about 90% of the calls are from those two places. The other 10% are neighbors, friends, family members, or anyone who, any of the mandated reporters who may call in abuse or neglect. Once a call comes in, a social worker is sent out. If the situation is significant, the kids will be removed and placed in foster care. Those foster homes could be regular foster parents, it could be a relative, it could be a group home, it could be a residential treatment center, depending on what the needs of the child are. How does CASA play into all of that? Well, usually CASA gets appointed when after all hell has broken loose in the case and the parties can't come to an agreement. Maryland is a state where children in foster care are appointed an attorney. Most of the children's attorneys in Maryland are through the Legal Aid Bureau. There are several other smaller contract attorneys that do represent children, and children's attorneys represent the child's wishes. So keep that in mind. Parents, if a kid is removed from a parent is offered representation. Those parents are represented by the Office of the Public Defender. And then you have the social workers through the Department of Social Services, and they are represented by attorneys also. So you already have 3 sets of attorneys involved in a case of a child in foster care. And then you have the CASA. CASAs are everyday citizens who I go out and recruit, I do commercials, I speak everywhere, I am begging people, please become a volunteer. In order to become a volunteer, a person has to go through 30 hours of training, there has to be a background check, and also an interview. There's a CASA volunteer here, I don't see her. One of my volunteers here, she's also a law student here. Here or UB? UB law student. She's also a CASA volunteer. After our volunteers go through training, part of the training, they learn how to write court reports, they learn interviewing skills, they learn how to communicate, sometimes in difficult situations. They learn all the background of foster care and adoption here in Maryland. The CASA volunteers are neutral. They speak with everyone involved in the case. They speak with bio parents, foster parents, adoptive parents, social workers, therapists, teachers, everyone, and they gather as much information as they can. CASAs are considered the eyes and the ears of the court. And once all the information is gathered, CASA volunteers write a court report with recommendations to the court. We are not limited in what we can recommend. So you have the child's attorney who has to represent the child's wishes. So if Johnny is 10 and Johnny says, I don't want to be adopted, I want to just stay with my foster parent, that's what his attorney has to say. If Johnny's mom's attorney says, my client says she did not abuse this child, she wants her child back, that's what the Office of the Public Defender's attorney will say on behalf of the mom. Same thing, if dad has an attorney, their attorneys have to represent what they want. The social worker's attorney, they have to represent what is in the best interest of the child based on the state and federal regulations and guidelines. CASA, we can recommend anything that we want. And I'll give you an example of some of the new and different things that we recommend. We have, and I'm going to talk about a few specific cases. We have a case of a young boy. He is now 4 years old. He came into foster care because of neglect. He came in shortly after birth. His mother used drugs during her pregnancy, so he was born addicted. He has multiple health issues because of the prenatal drug exposure. Both of his parents have unsuccessfully attempted substance abuse treatment on several occasions. There are maternal relatives and paternal relatives that are both interested in taking this child. This child is also in a foster home that the foster parents are trained in how to care for a special needs child. The foster parents want to adopt this child. The parents have now, I want to say in the past 2 weeks, re-enrolled in substance abuse treatment. So they are attempting to get themselves together. One of the challenges with foster care and adoption is the timeline. We all know that substance abuse, most of the cases in Baltimore City, kids are coming into care because of neglect, and it's often substance abuse is the center of the dysfunction of the family. Many of our families cannot get clean in 60, 90, 18 months, 60 to 90 days, 18 months, sometimes 3 to 5 years. However, foster care is a time-limited process, and we want kids to move to permanency. So some of the challenges that our families face are substance abuse, getting clean long enough in order for reunification to happen. Sometimes we have kids that are placed with family members, and family members may not necessarily want to adopt, or they may want to adopt, but they are concerned about how it would affect. If Varda's my sister and she has my kids and I live 2 blocks away, Varda may not want to push for adoption because I'm 2 blocks away. I'm there at Thanksgiving, I may be there at Christmas or a family cookout. So should my kid still call me mommy, or should my kid now call Varda mommy? So when you have family adoption through foster care, sometimes it gets a little gray or the mushy things. I'll go back to the case of the 5-year-old. The timeline on this case is what the challenge is, and actually that's how CASA got appointed, because kid's been in foster care for 5 years, mom and dad are both in and out of drug treatment, can't fully pull it together. Foster parents want to adopt. CASA is recommending permanency for this child. We're also recommending that the foster parent consider an open adoption because the parents are kind of fumbling through substance abuse and they would like to have contact with their child. So adoption and foster care is always not warm and fuzzy, clean, black and white, because, you know, our families are not always clean and black and white, and we're big, hairy, and ugly. So the other thing that I also wanted to mention about adoption through foster care, especially when it comes to the financial part, most of our families who adopt from foster care are eligible for a subsidy. If a kid is over the age of 6, if the kid is a minority, if it's a sibling group, most of our families are eligible for an adoption subsidy. An adoption subsidy in the state of Maryland is usually $850 a month plus medical assistance up until age, I want to say 18 or 21, depending on if the kid may have a special need. So the population of our adoption cases and our agreements are usually older than the newborn adoption. So let me talk a little bit more about another case, which is very interesting. We have this kid is 12, it's a boy. He is placed with an aunt. He has been in foster care since he was 2 years old. He's been eligible for adoption since he was 5 years old. At this point, he's languishing in foster care. He's been free for adoption since he was 5. He's now 12. CASA is really pushing this aunt to either poop or get off the pot. I can't say that here. The aunt has to make a commitment to this child, or the agency has to really find a family who can potentially take this child. Unfortunately, this family is all this child has known since he was 2. And because there have not been advocates paying attention to the timeline and, oh, everything's fine, this kid is fine, good home, he's okay, he really isn't. Because what's going to happen when he turns 15 and he smokes marijuana for the first time? Or what's going to happen when he violates curfew and he's 16 and the aunt is like, you got to go? The other case that I didn't get a chance to talk about because my time is running out is what we're experiencing, failed adoptions. We're experiencing kids that are coming back into care who were adopted and something happened, whether it was a divorce or whether a foster parent or adoptive parent now has cancer and is terminal and can't take care of a kid, or the kid is now that dreaded teenager and the adoptive parents have returned the kid to foster care. So we're now experiencing many broken agreements post-adoption. Thank you.